battled with depression and with suicide. And so the reason they feel that he battled with suicide was because he had lost his mother at a very young age. He lost his sister. He lost his son. And so he began to battle with depression, and he went through some very dark seasons in his life where he would come in and out of this. And I thought, you know what, if a president of the United States of America battles with depression, then how many know, amen, that we also can have some ups and downs in our lives. 1 Kings 19:1, it says, and Ahab told Jezebel all that Elijah, remember the 400 prophets have been killed by the hand of Elijah. What Elijah had done and all that he killed, all the prophets with the sword. And Jezebel sent a messenger to Elijah saying, so let the gods to me and more also, if I do not make your life like the life of one of them by tomorrow about this time. And he rose up and he went for his life. And he came to Beersheba of Judah. He left his servant there. And he himself went a day's journey into the wilderness. And came and sat down under a broom tree. And he begged for his life that he might die. And he said, it is enough. O Jehovah, take away my life, for I am no better than my fathers. We're going to look at, first of all, the assault on the believer. Now, the enemy understands that all he needs to do to defeat you is get in your head. He understands that most of us here are not going to go out and sin. We're not going to give in to temptations. And so he tries to figure out a different way. And the way that he does this so many times is just by getting into our head. You know, here's Jezebel. She could have easily had Elijah killed right there on the spot. But she knew that the people believed that he was a prophet, that he was a man of God. So she didn't want to disrupt the people. So she understood something. I don't need to touch this man. I just need to get in his head. She says a few words, and all of a sudden he's running for his life. Hanoi Hannah. She's known for being a radio personality around the Vietnam War. And she's best known for dropping pamphlets on the American GIs. And what she was doing is the Americans, we were winning, but she knew that all she had to do was just get into their heads. So she starts dropping these pamphlets and read, GIs, your government has abandoned you. They have ordered you to die. Don't trust them. They're lying to you. GIs, you know you cannot win this war. They were already winning. But this woman understood something. If I can just get in their heads, and I can get them to give up. Verse 2, Jezebel sent a messenger to Elijah saying, so let the gods do to me, and more also, if I do not make your life like the life of one of them by tomorrow. The assault in the mind, and he runs. Church, one of your biggest battles in ministry is going to be in your mind. Because it's an open field for the enemy to plant his seeds of discord, seeds of rebellion, seeds of suspicion, of insecurities, of doubts, of depression. All he needs to do is drop a seed. We had a missionary out in the field, and the wife, her back had real severe back problems. Doctors couldn't figure out what was wrong with her. Meds weren't helping. She was having to miss church. And so they're constantly calling, and I'm praying, and we're fasting. I have the church fasting, and no change. And then I said to her, I said, did you, before you ever, I said, has anybody ever given you anything or spoken to you? She said, Pastor, she said, when I was younger, before I got saved, she said, I went to a witch, and she told me that when I got older, I was going to suffer from my back. She said, ever since then, she says, I didn't say anything to you, but ever since then, I've been thinking about this in the back of my head. I wonder. She says, I know I'm saved and I'm covered by the blood, but I wonder. And there's that seed. Prayed for her on the spot. Got healed, completely delivered from her back, because the enemy understands all I have to do is plant a seed. Jezebel gets in Elijah's head. One moment, he's on top of the world. The next moment, he's running for his life. You know what this tells me? This tells me that it doesn't matter how much God is using you or how powerful you think you are. Anybody can get discouraged. That we're going to have our seasons. There's going to be highs and lows. I remember pioneering, having a car repo, not being able to find a job for 9 months. I mean, just going. My church went down to 2 people 6 times. Thank God, amen, that those were the low points of my life. Amen, that today is different. But so many people, they give up right there. 1 Peter 1:13, therefore girding up the loins of your mind, being sober, perfectly whole for the grace being brought to you at the revelation of Jesus Christ. Pastor Mitchell gave us a wonderful illustration of this, and he says that what he means by girding up the loins, amen, is that back in those days their epods would drag to the ground, and so whenever they had to run or they were going to fight or defend themselves, that they had to pick that up and tie it around their waist to make sure that they wouldn't trip, and so that they could run. And the reality is, beloved, that that's a good picture of our mind, that we have to learn, amen, how to gird the loins of our mind. There are going to be times where you're going to feel crazy. You're going to feel like you're losing your mind. You're going to feel like giving up. And you're going to have to tie that. Take dominion over it. Right. Let's look at secondly at the effects of the assault. And this is really what I want to preach on. Let's look at the aftershocks of the assault. Look at verse 4. And he himself went a day's journey in the wilderness, came and sat down under a broom tree, and he begged for his life that he might die. And he said, it is enough. Take away my life. You know that sometimes the after effect of the assault is greater than the actual assault? You know that they say that after an earthquake, the tremors that come after an earthquake do more damage than the actual earthquake itself. It's true even when you're in a car accident. A couple of years ago, my wife and my daughter, they got hit by a drunk driver, and she got rear-ended and the guy took off. My wife's crazy. She chased him and got his license plate number. The police said, okay, now get away from the guy. And so she said, she's crazy. I guess you have to be crazy to be married to me. And so, are you hurting? Anything? No, I feel great. My daughter, how do you feel? I feel great. But a week passed, and my wife couldn't get out of bed. Her back was hurting. Her neck was hurting. It wasn't the actual impact that did the damage. It was the aftershocks. And this is exactly what the enemy understands. He knows that if he can get in our head, if we allow it to fester there, that it'll begin to affect our lives. I remember coming back from Bolivia, and we're seeing amazing revival. God is just moving supernaturally, and I get sick, and I get the phone call from Pastor Ruby, we're pulling you out of there. And I remember being so upset. I said, Pastor, I don't want to leave anywhere. I want to stay here. He says, Roman, I talked to Pastor Mitchell. He said to get you out of there now. I already have your plane tickets. You're coming out in the morning. I remember coming back, and I'm at the hospital the first day, and he comes and he prays for me. And he says, Roman, you need to start thinking about what you're going to do when you get out of here. I said, I'm going back to Bolivia. He says, no, you're not going back to Bolivia. I said, Pastor, I'm going back to Bolivia. He says, Roman, you are not going back to Bolivia. I said, Pastor, in the old days, didn't the missionaries used to die for their nations? He says, yes, Roman, but today we use wisdom. I said, I know what I don't want to do. I don't want to evangelize. He says, what do you mean? They're waiting for you to evangelize. I said, I don't want to evangelize. He says, what do you want to do? I said, I want to impart into men. I want to send couples out. I want to be a pastor. He says, well, I don't have anything to offer you like that. And so I ended up taking a church in San Marcos, Texas. It was a church of about 37 people. Pastor Campbell went there for me too. And about 37 people. And I think in a matter of 3 months, we were hitting up about 110, 120. God began to move. But 3 months after I was there, I was sitting at home and I was upset at God. I was in the middle of a revival. But I was angry. Because I wanted to be in Bolivia. And it wasn't fair. I sacrificed everything to go to Bolivia, and now I can't go back, and I'm sitting there with a church that is exploding in revival, but I can't enjoy it. Let's look at a few aftershocks that happen after the assault. Number one is you begin to take control of your life. See, the Lord can only use us when we are in complete surrender to His plan. The problem is that when we don't see what we want, we take the wheel. We fail to see many times that the battle is against flesh, not against flesh and blood. I told this story in Prescott at the conference, but when I was there in Bolivia the first day, a police officer pulled me over, and every day I began to realize that I was the only, a few cars that was American. Everybody else's was a little Toyota taxis, and so they could spot me easily. And the moment I come to a light, they don't carry guns, and they still, back then, they would turn the lights red, green, and yellow by hand. And so I'm coming to the light, they turn it red, and then they blow the whistle and pull over, and te vamos a llevar para la oficina. We're going to take you to the office, unless you pay a fine. And so, I don't know anything, man. I'm terrified. I landed in the middle of a civil war, and I don't want to go to jail. So, I just give them some money. Well, you know what? This began to really cost me. And so the day came, I was having a super bad day. And sure enough, they blow the whistle, and the cop gets in my car. By this time, they already knew me. They would get in my car, and they would take me to the back of a building, and I would pay them there so that the other guys couldn't see, so that he wouldn't have to split it. And so he takes me, he gets in my car, and my wife and daughter are in there, and he says, take a left, and I took a right, and I went to a back of a different building where I knew there was no other cops around, and I ran around the vehicle. I pulled this police officer out by his shirt, I slammed him on the wall, and I said, listen to me. I said, I am not going to be giving you money anymore. I said, I am a missionary. I am a man of God. You tell all your little friends that I'm not giving them any more money. Got around my vehicle and I took off. And I realized I could have gotten in serious trouble. You see, that's what happens when you forget that the battle's spiritual. John the Baptist said, less of me and more of you. The devil's in his head. He's in jail. Elijah runs, he quits, abandons the will of God, and he takes things into his own hand. Elijah got discouraged because in his mind, he thought after such a great demonstration of God's power, surely paganism was going to be over. And everything just went right back to its normal self. He thought, you know what, Jezebel's going to be dethroned after this great demonstration of God's power through me. See, this discourages God's people because we love to focus on those few things that we do right. Only I'm left. God, we gave, we serve, we sacrifice, and nothing's changing. So I'm going to take things into my own hands. You know what's even worse is when you're trying to do right and you're trying to help people, and those people that you're trying to help are the ones that are doing the most damage to your life. As a pastor, I find that to be very disheartening sometimes. Very people that you're trying to help are attacking your wife and your kids. Giving their opinions freely in the church about your children. That can really mess with your head. Second thing that people do is they begin to compare. Verse 10, so he said, I have been very zealous for the Lord God of hosts. The children of Israel have forsaken your covenant, torn down your altars, and killed your prophets with the sword. I alone am left, and they seek to take my life. He's comparing his life to everybody else's there. It's not good to think you're the only one left, the only real righteous person left. It's not good to think you're the only one who's doing everything right. I had a guy tell me last year, without this church, without me in this church, it's going to fall apart. You'll see. And he leaves, and the church doubled. Modesty makes more impact than boasting. You know, I had Pastor Marty Carnegie, before we had started in India, the foundational work. And he's pioneering now in, or pastoring the church in Atlanta, yeah. And I'm taking him through my land. And I'm like, yeah, right here we're going to build a 54,000. I'm just excited. You know, I've never been a part of anything like this. You know, I'm not trying to boast, but you know, and so we're driving in my truck, and right here we're going to build a 54,000 square foot facility up, and right there I'm going to buy a plane so that I can land it later. And he turns to me, he says, you know what, Roman? He says, I don't mean, he says, you know I love you, bro. He says, but listen, not everybody's happy for you, man. And he says, you know, you ought to let us come in here and see what God's doing, and then we'll tell the world for you. And you know, it put things in proper perspective. I'm glad he did that for me. But you know, we love to compare. If you're not careful, you can lose your mind the way Saul did. You begin to envy, you begin to complain, you begin to notice things that you never noticed before. There's a thing called the 80-20 rule. The 80-20 rule is that if 80% of your marriage is good, then don't focus on the 20% that's bad. If 80% of your church is good, then don't focus on the 20% that's bad. I'll take it a little further. If 80% of your pastor is good, then don't nitpick at the 20. Come on. A few years back, we bought this 14-foot Christmas tree. Amen. It's got 2,500 lights. And so I plug it in. It's gorgeous. You need sunglasses to look at it, you know. And so one day I come home. You know, we've only had it a couple of weeks, and there's out of the 2,500 lights down at the bottom, there's 2 lights that went out. And so, you know, I started messing with it, man. Pulling them out, putting them in, shaking it, kicking it. I'm like, what the heck? Every time that I walk inside my house, the only thing that I can notice are the 2 lights that are out. There's almost 2,500 lights that are lit. A beautiful tree. But I can't focus on the beauty of the tree. I can only focus on the 2 lights. And that's the way, if you're not careful, you can become like that. Does pastor even know what they do? I mean, why would he put them in leadership? Why would he give them position? Why would he let them serve? I mean, we, on the other hand, our Christmas tree is lit all the way. They got a couple of bulbs out. We lose the beauty of watching people get saved and God begin to transform them into leaders and instruments in His kingdom.
Yes, come on.
Number 3 is isolation. He runs into the wilderness and he hides himself, which we know isolation leads to self-pity. Elijah said, I alone am left. Remember, the devil is an opportunist. Elijah's confused. He's discouraged. He's having a pity party. Only I am righteous. No one appreciates me. I'm the only one that tries. No one appreciates what we do. Be careful, because isolation leads to depression. You know, Abraham Lincoln, they would have to hide sharp objects from him. When they would leave him alone in a room, they would have to take the razors and the scissors, because he tried taking his life a few times. But when he was alone, it's when it was the worst. The devil understands this.
Yeah, it's true.
It's important. It's important to understand that people of that caliber, like a president of a nation, struggle with things like that. You know what? People are just people, man. We're human. It's amazing how we expect our pastors to be perfect. We forget that, you know what, pastors are just as human as anybody else. We have amazing, great pastors, you know, like Pastor Campbell, amen. But we're just human on the inside, and we believe the same as everybody else. The aim of the enemy is to make us incapable. The devil can lie to you and tell you that you're really not making an impact. You're not making a difference. People aren't really being impacted by your life anymore. You know, one thing I've learned from God is that nothing is wasted with God. Bad times, good times, they all serve their purpose. I was just there, and 10 years down the road, I was just there in Bolivia in January for a rally with Pastor Paul Stevens. There's 8 churches there now. The church that I pioneered, one of my couples has it. He launched a couple last year. He's launching another couple, God willing, this year. And I mean, God has done amazing things.
Thank you, Jesus.
And to Him all the glory. But I remember thinking, man, what a waste of time. I was only there for 8 months. It took longer to receive my stuff and repack it and bring it back to the States than I was there. You know what God proved? God proved that He really doesn't need us. Amen. I made a call at that altar in the rally for men that wanted to preach the gospel to see what the future of Bolivia is. And we had 32 young men come to the altar. I mean, I broke down in tears, man. God said to me, it wasn't a waste time. See, we don't understand it when we're going through it. Let's close with a greater cause. Your best is yet to come. One thing that you get out of Abraham Lincoln is after winning the battle with depression is that the greater things that he accomplished was after his battle with it. Same is true for Elijah. You know what I love about this story? What I love about this story is that the same God that appeared for Elijah on Mount Carmel was the same God that appeared to Elijah under the broom tree. See, we think God's only pleased with us when we're hitting every lick. Same God. I believe sometimes God allows us to hit rock bottom so that all the distractions are removed. Victories and success can be very distracting at times. You begin to feel immortal, prideful, self-dependent. Sometimes it's hard to hear from God through constant victories and blessings. He allows us to go through things so that we can focus. The devil loves to make us feel like it's over. There are people in here, listen, it's not over.
No.
You can still make incredible impact.
Yeah.
The God that I read about tells me that Mordecai went to bed with a death sentence, and the next morning he woke up as a prime minister. My Bible tells me that Joseph was in prison when he put his head to sleep, and the next day he was the second in command. God can turn any situation around.
Amen.
The devil knows that if he can get in your head, you'll forget about the greater cause. 3 things that came after Elijah's battle with discouragement. Pastor Campbell mentioned this one last month in the rally. Elijah came. This came after Elijah's battle with discouragement. 1 Kings 19:19. So he departed from there and found Elijah the son of Shaphat, who was plowing with 12 yoke of oxen before him, and he was with the 12. Then Elijah passed by him and threw his mantle. Your best disciples, your best fruit, your best converts are ahead. You know what else? Your greatest miracles are ahead. It's after this battle that Elijah runs into the 2 captains and 100 men are slain by fire. You can read about that in 2 Kings 1:10. Then you can read about in 2 Kings about Elijah, God using him to part the Jordan and divide it. And it's Elijah who gets taken up in a whirlwind, where death doesn't even touch him. His greatest miracles were ahead. You know what else? Your greater glory is ahead. You know who it was? It was on the Mount of Transfiguration with Jesus. Amen. It was Moses and Elijah. That means that your greater glory days are ahead. 2 Corinthians 3:18. But we all with unveiled face, beholding as in a mirror the glory of the Lord, are being transformed into the same image from glory to glory, just as by the Spirit of the Lord. Your greater glory days are ahead. I was giving Pastor Olson a ride to the airport, and he told me this story. I had never heard it, and I'm sure you've heard it because Pastor Campbell's in it. But the story was in the first church split, fellowship split, and 125 churches were left from 375, Pastor Olson said, to 400 that stayed. 125 were there, so he said ended up leaving. Mark Olson, Pastor Olson said that this hit Pastor Mitchell really hard, financially, spiritually, and he said that one day he came in the morning and he told Pastor Campbell, or Pastor Campbell told him, we need to go visit Pastor Mitchell, and that they drove to Prescott. And there, in the old building, Pastor Mitchell was sitting on the stairs. And Pastor Olson said that he was a day away from pulling all the missionaries back, not sending churches out anymore. And so Pastor Campbell and Pastor Olson, he said, showed up, and there he was. And he looked at them and said, Campbell, I don't know what you're going to do, but I'm going to keep on sending churches out. Thank God that he was able to pull himself out of that. You think about the worldwide expression that we're having today.
Come on now. Come on.
Because of a man of God that says, you know what, this is just a season. We're going to keep sending churches out. There's still so many nations to touch. So many couples that God wants to raise up, but also couples that maybe have already thrown in the flag that God can still use. Hallelujah. Let's bow our heads tonight in the presence of God. I'm going to keep launching in. The assaults are going to come. The attacks are going to come. You cannot be a church, a powerhouse like this church. Be a minister like Pastor Campbell, Sister Connie, assaults are going to come. Jezebel understood. All I have to do is get in his head. That's it. It's still true today. I wonder how many here, the devil's in your head. It's over. You're starting to build a life now, making a career. God's called you to the nations. He's called you to be a pastor. Pastor's wife. He's called you to be a pillar. Bible study leader. Same God that visited Elijah on the mount. It's the same God that visited him under the broom tree. Before I go any further, you're here tonight, you'd say, Brother Roman, I'm not saved. Can you please pray for me? I'm discouraged with life right now. I've been getting hit left and right, and I'm at the worst point in my life that I've ever been. Listen, Jesus Christ can change that. He can change that tonight. Before I move on to other things, you're here tonight, you say, Pastor, would you please pray for me? If that's you, you want to receive Jesus Christ in your heart as your Lord and Savior, I want you to lift your hand right there where you're at, high enough where I can see it, and say, that's me. God bless you, sir. God sees that hand. God bless you, sir. God sees that hand. You can put those down. How many others tonight? You're not saved. You're not sure if you'd make heaven your home. You want to pray tonight. You want to join these honest hearts. If you haven't lifted your hand, I want you to do it right now. Lift it high enough where I can see it. If you haven't yet, say, that's me, Pastor. Here's my hand. Hallelujah. Anyone else before I change the order? You're backslidden, backslided. I want you to lift your hand. You got discouraged. It's okay. You're in the right place. God's going to help you. He's going to restore you. But you must respond. God bless you, sir. Who else tonight? You're backslidden. God's trying to help you tonight. I want you to lift your hand. God bless you. God sees that hand. Who else tonight? You're not saved. God bless you, ma'am, in the back. God sees that hand. Who else tonight? You're not saved. You're backslidden. You have not lifted your hand. Thank you, sir. God sees that hand. Who else tonight? Who else? I feel like Pastor Campbell said, God